so today we are going to be making some sauerkraut. This is a cabbage that I have just pulled fresh out of my garden. And as you can see, I have just rinsed it off and cleaned it off a little bit, but we will maybe still find a few bugs or bits of dirt in here. Some of these outer leaves, and maybe not particularly this one, we're going to save because we'll use them later, but let's just see what happens once we sort of open this up a little bit. So, one thing about cabbage out of your garden, if you're not using any sprays or anything, you can tell that it's super healthy, and I guess you could say organic, because the bugs and the little squirmy things don't mind going on there because there's no pesticides and whatnot. So it's not necessarily a terrible thing when you find things in there. So just rinse this off a little bit. So, I think this one leaf where we found that bit of a worm on there, we're going to take that one and get rid of it and put it in the compost. Now, this I'm going to take a leaf for sure because I'm going to use it later when I pack it into the jar. So, try and keep most of the leaf intact best I can. This is a nice leaf, nice and clean, no bugs. I'll just set that off to the side. Now, some of you might laugh when you see my knife. Now, this knife I have had for many, many years, and it is my absolute favorite knife. So, yes, it could be a bigger knife, but when you get used to working with something and it works for you, you stick with that. I have tried replacing this knife, getting different ones and newer ones. I just happen to like this one in particular. So we're going to cut out the core of the cabbage. Like to waste anything. Oh, that's good. And this leaf here, I think I'm going to take that one as well. Now this is one of about 4 that are ready to be harvested from our garden. So this is the first time making sauerkraut, so I'm going to give it a go today and see how it is, see how I do and how much it makes. And then I'll probably pull another one out tomorrow, maybe make another batch. There we go. Okay, keep that. So what we want to do is we want to cut up the cabbage fairly fine. where I wish I had a bigger bigger cutting board. And you can cut it however you like. I mean, I like it in smaller pieces, but whatever works for you. Black something there. Just a small piece of dirt. That's what happens when it comes fresh out of the garden. We're vegetarians, so I always joke with my daughter that it's a good way to get your vitamin B12. If you're not taking a supplement for it, you can get a little piece of dirt here or there in your food. It's an excellent way to get your B12. It's a bit of a joke, but it's not necessarily untrue. Now, I'm going to also include a video in the description for some information about fermenting and fermenting foods and the benefits, the health benefits of fermented foods. I'm not going to necessarily go into that in this video here, but I will share some information in the link, in the description below rather. And there'll be a link to my other channel, which is called Nature's Path to Wellness. I am studying to be a holistic nutritionist, and I'm just about finished my studies, but I have another channel which I will share some information on that side. So I think that's about all I'm going to be able to really fit in that bowl. Now they say about 2 tablespoons of salt per 2 pounds of cabbage. So this one here, if I had weighed it, I don't actually have a kitchen scale, I would have said it is about 4 pounds. So what we're gonna do, just gonna rinse my hands, is we are going to put 2 tablespoons in this portion, and then I will do another portion. But just for the purpose of this video, I'll do half the cabbage and show you what to do once it's been worked a little bit with the salt. So 2 tablespoons. And this is just pink Himalayan sea salt. Now, normally I have a different brand that I use, but this is what we had in the store local here. So put the lid back on. Otherwise, I'll end up knocking that over. So what you want to do is you just want to get the salt going in there. And you just want to start basically massaging the cabbage with the salt. There is nothing else needed, no other ingredients in here. And eventually, once you start massaging this for a little while, you will end up with a bit of a, you'll start to get some moisture in there. And basically it creates a brine. Just make a little bit more space here. Now this is something you could even do with a store-bought cabbage. I mean, it's nice that we happen to have some cabbage that's right out of our garden, fresh. But if you want to make sauerkraut at home, you could just go and buy the preferred get an organic cabbage if you could, but you can just still pick up a cabbage from the store and just do everything the same as what we're doing here. Now, as soon as I put this cabbage in here, it was quite stiff and hard and everything, but as I'm working it with the salt, I can already start to feel that the cabbage is really softening up. I am expecting that within the next few minutes here of massaging it, getting all that salt mixed through there good, that there'll be some, I'm starting to feel the moisture now. You want to do this until you actually can get enough moisture that when you go to wring it, it starts to drip. We're not quite there yet, just about. Really feel the moisture now. Just lost a piece here. I'm pretty excited to make this. I really love sauerkraut. It's one of my favorite things. This pickled beets. We just made some pickled beets. We didn't get a lot of beets this year. Next year I'm going to plant more. I really enjoy pickled beets, and we did make some pickled carrots, which I should have videoed all of that. I didn't. But it was also our first time making both of those. It was my first time canning anything this year. So a lot of learning, and you know, sometimes it's a little scary to share something if you've never done it before, but even with the sauerkraut, I decided, you know what, this is a good opportunity for me to learn something and to share it with you. So. My fingers are a little bit sore. I was repairing, well, adding to our garden fence. If you watched our most recent video, I was sort of saying that next year we might change the fencing that's on there because it's not really big enough to go up between the two rails. And what I actually decided to do yesterday is to actually just use some more of the same fencing and just run another row at the top of it and sort of wire the two fences together. And I'm sure I'll show what we did in another video. I'm getting ready to close out the garden pretty soon for the year, and I'll show you what I did to the fence. But now it's perfect. The goats can't push the wire in and can't reach the plants that they've been trying to get to any longer. They looked a little bit forlorn standing and looking outside the garden at the fence, wondering why they can't get in there anymore. Now, this is good. You can start to see all of the brine that's being created. This is pink because of the pink salt, the sea salt. But it's gotten really wet in here. So this is good. Probably another minute or two. And be ready to throw it into a jar. Now, I've got canning jars that I use, that I purchased to do canning this year, but I am just going to actually use a couple of, I don't know what the brand is. Let's see, these are Atlas mason jars, and these actually had spaghetti sauce in them. I've had them for a while. I haven't bought spaghetti sauce in a long time. We now mostly make everything homemade with homemade tomatoes and onions and all of that kind of stuff. So, but I have these jars, and I'm going to use them rather than my canning jars because we won't be canning these. Like, I won't be putting them into a water bath. And actually, this piece here is pretty hard. I'm going to take that out. That was what I was just taking out of there a minute ago. There was a big hard piece there. But I'm not going to be putting these in a water bath. I'm actually just we're just making 2 jars for now, so we'll probably just put them, these are kind of like hardcore pieces, so I'm going to take those out. We're just going to put these in the fridge, and there's no doubt that this will get eaten really quickly. So, I don't know, my daughter's not a huge fan of sauerkraut. She likes it on occasion, but I love it. Absolutely love it. I guess I'm getting a little carried away, and don't worry, my counter is super clean. Cleaned it really good before we started this, so there we go. Now I think we have created enough of a liquid that we can put this into the jar. So I'm just going to rinse my hands off a little bit. And I am going to use my little, I think this should work, canning funnel. Now it's been clean and put away, but I'm just going to give it a quick rinse. And I just washed these jars with hot soapy water. Again, I didn't boil them and do all of that as if I were canning, because we're not canning these things. So these 2 jars, they will be just put in the fridge. They will actually be sitting on the counter for a couple of days. You can't put them in the fridge right now. They need to ferment. So they need to set basically at room temperature and ferment before we would put them in the fridge. So there won't even be a lid on them at this time. This is what these couple of leaves of cabbage have been put aside for. So now there is, in watching some of the videos, there's tools that you can use. You can use a rolling pin. My rolling pin won't fit in here very well, but you basically want to pound down this cabbage as best as you can. And the best thing that I could come up with was this honey thing used for honey. So I'm going to use that, and it seems to be working just great. So I want to pack this stuff down as much as possible, and you'll see that the brine is covering the cabbage. So that's what we want, just like that. So hopefully you guys are able to see this well. I am not able to obviously operate the camera and do all of this at the same time. So hopefully I'm making it so that you guys can see. Let's just move this stuff around a little bit. So there we go. So take this, pack it down some more. Now, my understanding is that it's super important that your cabbage is underneath the brine. So you don't want, chunks of cabbage sticking up above the brine. That's where you can end up having some mold issues and whatnot. So you want to make sure everything is submersed. And I am going to take one of these leaves. Now there's nothing particularly wrong with these leaves. I mean, there's, a little bit of pitting here or discoloration. I don't think there's anything wrong with the discoloration. It's a little bit of a purple color. There's nothing particularly wrong with these cabbage leaves, but I'm going to use them to help pack down the sauerkraut so that it stays submersed below the brine and everything. So just going to pack that down. These ones, at the time when this is finished, so we're going to be leaving these on the counter for about 4 days. You can do them, I think, anywhere from 4 to 7 days, but we're gonna, because this is the first time with me doing this, I'm gonna do this for 4 days, and we will check it somewhere in between and just make sure everything is going okay. But we're just gonna use these leaves to pack everything down so everything stays. And once it's done and once it's ready, I'll take these leaves out. We won't be using those to eat, and then we'll put a lid on. And again, these were just spaghetti sauce jars that I had. So we're gonna use the spaghetti jar lid that came with it. And we're not gonna be canning these essentially. So I'm not using the proper lids and putting them in the water bath. They'll just go in the fridge. So I think that's about it for that leaf. Just put as much as we can in there, just to make sure everything stays. All this stuff here is just this leaf. Everything else is below the brine. So that piece is really too hard to try and press into there. So we'll just set it off into the side, and I'm not sure if it'll stay over there or we'll put it somewhere else, but that's what it's gonna do essentially. You don't wanna cover it. I suppose if you had cheesecloth, you could put some cheesecloth on there and just to cover it up. Like I know I was reading a few different things where people, there was posts and whatnot that I was reading and looking on YouTube as well to see of other people's recipes and how they do it, being that this is my first time. And they said, you know, you can put a piece of cheesecloth over top if you want, because it can breathe. That's the importance of the whole thing, is that it needs to be able to breathe while it's in here. So we could put something like a piece of cheesecloth. I don't happen to have any at this time, so we're just gonna do it like this. And the lettuce leaf, or the cabbage leaves, will keep it, you know, covered and protected. And we're not in a season where, and in fact, we don't really have those anyways, fruit flies. I don't leave fruits and things out laying around that are gonna attract that kind of thing. So we're not too concerned about that. Just gonna make sure it's really tucked in good there. Another leaf. So we'll just put that one off to the side, and we'll be doing the same one with this, same thing with this other half of the cabbage. We will just cut them up and add some more salt, and same thing into the jar, and then covering up with the cabbage leaves for the period of about 4 days. Now somewhere in between there, maybe 2.5 days kind of thing, I will check and just see how it's doing and make sure that nothing smells off, or we don't see any formation of any sort of, I don't know how quick, I don't think it would be that quick if there's any sort of like that white fuzz type of thing if something's going off. So we'll take a look and make sure there's nothing like that. But other than that, I will give you an update as to how these are going, with this being the first time we've done this. And I'm sure they'll turn out well, and I'm super excited to eat them. So thank you for joining, and I'm going to continue on with this other half of the cabbage and getting it ready to go in the jar. And I hope you have yourself a wonderful day. If you've enjoyed this video and you enjoy any other videos of ours on this channel, please do like and subscribe. Thanks for coming along with us on our journey.